we have opened fully from almost the get-go, right? We have been open. We are in the greater Sacramento area. It's an area that is quote unquote impacted like any other place where things are shut down. ICUs are supposed to be full, all of that kind of stuff. I have hundreds and hundreds of families that I serve. We haven't had a single instance of anything.
Matt, thank you so much for joining me here today.
The pleasure is mine. It's always great to connect with other great people that are on the same side,
Yeah, and well, on the same side, but on opposite coasts, actually. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about your professional background and what you do right now, what school you're at, and what your role is.
Yeah, absolutely. So education has been my life. That has been my career. So I've done everything in K through 12 and higher ed. Was out at Stanford University for quite a while, and I've been a public school teacher and public school administrator in the K through 12 sectors. I've also been a private school teacher and private school administrator in K through 12, and currently I'm opening my own schools. So I have 3 campuses that I own here in California. And so those are K through 12 campuses. So those are all privately funded. And I still work with teachers and administrators in public and private sectors and in higher ed all across the country. So education is kind of my thing.
Yeah, you know a thing or two there. Okay. And so you're the decision maker then for your schools. So tell me about that process, because I mean, we're 10 months in now, so we obviously know more, but when you had to start making these decisions, there was a little bit less data. So tell me about that decision making process.
There was less data, so it was interesting. So we've got a lot of, I've got a lot of phenomenal families, obviously, that are at our campuses, and we are a very tight knit community. So when everything started coming out, we did gather together as a community. We came together, all the parents and the staff, and we just said, all right, look, what is this thing that is happening? What is this COVID thing? And what do we want to do about it? What was really, really interesting right from the get-go, the majority of my parents that were in the medical profession, they said, no, please do not close. I thought that was very interesting, but there was enough trepidation throughout the community where we said, okay, look, we don't really know yet, so let's go ahead and go virtual to start. We are set up to be able to go virtual more easily than many of the public sectors, are. So we went ahead and we went virtual. We stayed virtual for about 3 or 4 weeks, and at that point, as more data started to come out, we stopped being as worried, and I simply went back to my staff first and said, what do you think? They said, we're all kind of ready to go back. If we can do this, let's go. And I went to the families. I literally sent out a survey to all of our families, and 98% of our families came back and said, you know what, we're okay. If you're okay, let's do this. Let's open. No required. If anybody wants to take precautions, great. If they want to mask, distance, that's fine. We're set up to do that. That's fine. But let's let it be a choice. And we came back. So we came back in April and have been back full bore.
This was early.
This was early. I'm talking weeks
Okay.
in. And we came back full bore at that point and have not stopped.
Wow. Okay, so and now tell me a little bit, because you had mentioned about how you're a private school and you're set up a little bit more easily than public schools, and that's definitely one of the big arguments, and I think the strongest arguments coming from the other side. So, how can this be possible? And do you think it is possible for public schools? Like, is it taking you an extraordinary more amount of resources than it was in the past?
No, it's not taking us more resources at all. And when I say we were, more easily, obviously as a private institution, we get to play by our own rules, right? So we get to make the decision. As you said, the buck ends up stopping with me. I can say, hey, we are rocking and rolling, we are opening or not. So obviously that in and of itself is easier because there's less of a hierarchy. The problem public schools are going to have, it's not around making things safe for the kids. That's not their issue. The issue is the teachers unions that do not want the schools to open. The teachers unions that are trying to play out other agendas. I see it in my own home state, right? LA's teachers union saying, hey, unless we defund the police, we can't go back to school. What that has to do with health and our kids, I have no idea. But it's things like this, these agendas, that's what's going to make it difficult for public to open. It's not anything to do with the
And the
kids
thing is, for
themselves.
me, a lot of those issues and those initiatives, I actually am, open to. And before this all happened, I was, education reform and on a lot of these progressive ideas. But for me, it's just like I don't think we can even get to doing that until we get the kids back in school. And I actually see us undermining our position to be able to do that long term. So
That's exactly it. And we're making a mockery of what we're supposed to be there for. If we're supposed to be there for the kids to perpetuate any sort of political agenda, and I don't care where anybody falls, right, left, center, don't, anti-political, I don't care. I literally don't. Um, but to perpetuate my own agenda for whatever, other party or whatever that looks like, I, and sacrifice the kids to do it, it makes no sense to me.
yeah, that's the hardest thing for me is
Hmm. Yep.
I'm seeing in front of my face my
Mhm.
students withering away. And
Yes.
and we're in the city, so it's not like when
Right.
you're in the suburbs or even if you're like out in the country and you can just step outside.
Hmm.
Like, these kids are trapped in their apartments. And so I am
Yes.
concerned, obviously, first and foremost about my kids, but I also think that generally across the nation, we should be getting these schools open.
Hmm.
And so I
Couldn't agree
wanted to
more.
know what would you like to tell other teachers or other administrators who might be fearful of going back?
Yeah. So I, I'm gonna. I'm very open and honest to a fault. People either really really like me because I'm very very honest, or people really dislike me because I'm very honest. Right? It has usually it goes one of two ways. Okay, so that's the way it ends up being. So again, we have opened fully from almost the get go, right? We have been open. We are in the greater Sacramento area. It's an area that is quote unquote impacted like any other place where things are shut down. ICUs are supposed to be full, all of that kind of stuff. I have hundreds and hundreds of families that I serve. We haven't had a single instance of anything in my entire family base that consists of medical staff are all fully on board. It's the best thing I can tell you. There is no, I don't want to get into, obviously people will go, okay, well, what is your medical background? What is, if I start to say things like, the kids aren't going to spread, I'm not going to go into that because that's not my expertise. My expertise is education. My expertise is building these communities and helping these kids. And I can tell you these kids have been socially happier. They've been the families socially have been happier. We've almost come to this point where we're talking about how we've created this bubble of normal for our students, and they are just excelling. Things aren't weird for them. So not only have there been no medical cases and no issues there with anybody getting sick, we are as happy as we can possibly be. So for teachers that are stuck in a system where they don't get to make the decision, all I can say is fight. You got into this profession. I know the majority of teachers are in this profession because they got into it for altruistic reasons. They want to truly help the young people. If you want to help somebody right now, fight. The worst thing that happens is, yeah, you lose your job and you got to go somewhere else. My fear is that if you don't fight, it's going to end up dragging this out and you're going to end up having to walk away anyways. And then you'll regret the fact that you didn't stand up for what's right. So I encourage everybody to fight and stand up. I really do.
And I'm with you, and I so appreciate your voice, your words of encouragement, really just being a shining example of how we can make this happen and make it happen safely and for making the lives of our students better.
It's I mean, there is no greater joy than I mean, than being in this profession and seeing the lives that get transformed. There's no greater joy, and all of a sudden to be thrust into this position where we are able to do that when so much of the world seems to be spiraling downward. I feel like the luckiest person that I know, and I'm so grateful for our families standing up for their young people too and saying, no, we want something better for them. So I just encourage moms and dads to, around the country to do that.
Thank you so much, Matt. We're so grateful for your time, and I hope you have a
Pleasure.
happy new year, healthy new year, and keep going all the way with your students.
Same to you. Same to you. Keep up the good fight, Steph.